Thank you very much. I'm Philip Georgiadis, and I cover transport for the Financial Times here in London. And joining me now, Catherine Guillouard, the Chairwoman and Chief Executive of RATP Group. And we're going to talk about the future of public transport and, of course, how that's being shaped by the pandemic. So, Catherine, welcome. Perhaps the best place to start would be for you to introduce RATP and just give us an overview of the group and of your business.
Sure. So RATP Group is today the fourth largest public transport operator in the world. 65,000 people inside the group, on which one quarter is working around the globe, because we are present in 12 countries in addition to France on the 4 continents. And we operate 13 modes of transport, i.e. not only obviously what is the core of the business for us, and let's say our first business, which was in Paris, the metro. We just, by the way, have the 120th anniversary of the metro in Paris. But we operate many modes. For instance, we have invested in startups for electric scooter, covoiturage, car sharing, etc., etc. Cable, for instance, and even boats, electric boats in the west of France. We have last year 5.7 billion euros of turnover. And we have also 2 other activities in the group. Asset management. We have 10 billion of assets on the balance sheet, and we obviously take care of these assets. And also, we are seeing ourselves like the best partner for the smart cities. And so we have programs where we integrate real estate above industrial assets, like a bus depot, for instance, and also public services in a very high quality environmental norms. So we have a program of that kind for the next 12 years. And we expect from this program a turnover of 400 million. So 3 activities. The core is transportation, public transportation. Second, asset management. And third, real estate program, in fact.
When you think about that core transport network that you operate, what's the impact been of the pandemic?
The impact of the COVID is, in fact, multidimensional. The first one is on operations. The second aspect is on, let's say, the safety, sanitary topics. And the third one is obviously on financials. So on the operations, it was really a real challenge to, at each time of the crisis, being able to manage the maintenance and the operation and to move up and down the offer versus what the public authorities ask us. I just give you a very quick example. Confinement, number 1. We have a level of offer in average in Paris at 30%. Confinement number 2, we will have to be at 100%. And just to give you an example, also when we out of the confinement back from 100%, and this was really, let's say, reachable because we have managed our maintenance program during the first confinement very cleverly. Because obviously, as you could imagine, to restart a big network like ours in Paris, where we have 4,700 buses and 7,000 of cars of metro or tramway, it is not a push button activity. So operations were really key. The second element is obviously for us, public transport operator, the number 1 priority is normally security on the road, security on the railway. But came on top of that, the sanitary challenges. What I call the sanitary challenges is we have to, for instance, in less than 15 days, put 1 million stickers on all the structures i.e. Obviously the materials, but also the spaces. We have been able to develop in 3-4 weeks an industrial new process in order to every night put a product by nebulization program in order to kill COVID inside our bus. And we did it after for all the metro, the tram, and the RER, which obviously leads me to the financial aspects, i.e., for instance, if I take this example, we came from a budget for all the sanitary and let's say all the program in order to get very clean spaces and materials from 90 million euros to 210 million euros. And it was a double challenge, a challenge in operations, because when we closed now at 1 in the evening, the network, we enter in a massive program in order to wash everything with this new program, do at the same time the 400 network that we have to do, works that we have to do during the night in order to keep the infrastructure in good shape, etc. So every night, obviously, we have works to do. So it's a huge complexity inside the program and the operations that we have to manage, in addition of the, let's say, classical challenge to operate during the day and to repair during the night. And financially, finally, obviously, it's really, we think that the model will be, let's say, probably hurt till the pandemic, at least. And what our estimation at RATP Group is that we will have an impact of net impact of roughly 400 million for 2020. And this is also, let's say, probably now a good estimation, but we don't know if the crisis is still continuing. But I hope with the vaccine, it will be better in 2021. But the model is really shaky.
Mm. Hopefully, as you say, there is some light at the end of the tunnel coming. But you were talking there a little bit about the operational challenges, also the public messaging, putting stickers on, and so on. Do you think, given the amount of sanitizing you do and so on, do you think people feel safe again using public transport?
Well, honestly, we were very, very, let's say, focused on the fact that people need to wear masks. And, you know, we have, for instance, also not only by, let's say, explaining, but also by, let's say, giving sometime fines to the people, because we have we are now at 8,000 fines of 135 euros that we have been able to, let's say, to do in order to keep everybody in the best and safe position in our transport system. I think really that it's a very important matter, because in France we have French authorities that, let's say, regularly look at where are the clusters, and the transport is only 1%, 1.2% cluster, versus a restaurant or a bar, which is 26% of the cluster. So the reality is that since the beginning, the transport system was very hard on the fact that everybody has to wear a mask. And in addition, with all this policy that we have put in place to nebulize every night it's really for us very important in order to restore and to install confidence. Okay. And it's for that reason that I really believe that the cluster is absolutely not demonstrated in public transportation. And what I am saying, I don't want to be too much French-centric, because the reality is that the same in London, TfL also did some, let's say, survey And it's exactly the same in Berlin, in New York, or in London. So I think that the operators plus the public transport authorities have since the beginning understood that the confidence will be key, and let's say do what was necessary to do in order to try to avoid let's say exaggerate reaction of the audience, if I could say so. And I think it's for the moment it's quite let's say stabilized. The issue is more about the new, let's say, ways people mix their professional life, staying at home for safety reasons. And this one is obviously the one that is worrying the most, because if suddenly in the next, in the post-COVID era, everybody is staying at home 2 or 3 days, obviously it will have let's say, a huge impact on the transport system.
And do you have...
It will depend on the new, let's say, the stabilization of the system between remote work and work in the office.
And maybe it's a little bit early, but do you have a sense yet on how many people, the public transport network might have lost for commutes? I think here in the UK, some train companies think about a quarter of the people might not commute anymore. Do you have any idea with your international perspective on how that might work?
There are quite a batch of studies around it, but there is no consensus. I just give you an example. There was a study saying that in Paris region and the big neighborhood, 1/4 of the people will try to either not go back into the system, or be less in the system, because they will try to manage to be more multimodal themselves, i.e. Mix car plus public transport, etc. These studies was done during the summer. So I think first we need to see when the vaccine will be this type of study will set, because it was in summer without any perspective at that time, clear perspective around the vaccine. The one we did some studies inside RATP group, and what we have found is something which is a little bit different. It's a risk on the demand of around, let's say, 9 to 10% that could remain in the system, because what we have tried to simulate, it's exactly what I was saying before, i.e. 2 days of working at home per week, plus the fact that some of them will not systematically go to shop and will prefer to do by internet some of their shopping, plus a diminution of tourism. We have 40 million tourists in Paris normally per year, and we think that due to the, let's say, difficulty to reconnect the long haul, for instance, flight to Paris during a certain period of time, we will have a lower level of tourism. And this, in the model, should a minus 10%. If it is that, it will be manageable. If we are in something which could lead to the 25 of the first survey, it's really a earthquake on the model. And you know that we are, even if I think that obviously operator like us, and we obviously work on that, need to increase the productivity facing the crisis, which we'll try to do. At the same time, this increase of productivity, the second aspect will be to reduce the offer. And obviously, after you enter into a vicious circle, because you reduce the offer, so there is less people inside the transport system. And don't forget that public transport is absolutely key against pollution, congestion, greenhouse gas effect. And the worst would be that people shift again for cars, and it would be a disaster, obviously. And it's for that reason that I really believe that the flexibility inside the system is not so big, in fact. And it's really important that the confidence stay high in order that people continue to use public transportation.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the motor car there and the sort of the importance of public transport being there for when people move around again so that they don't go back to the car, which is really what we've seen. And I know in London, the traffic has been huge and people have really gone back to their cars much quicker than the train or the tube and so on. Well, are there any other parts of the sort of the public transport infrastructure that can be changed? You mentioned e-scooters there. Do you think they've got a part to play in other sort of maybe, alternative ways of moving around?
I think that there is at least one or two things that we need to bear in mind. The first thing is when you took a tube, a metro or a light rail or a tram, the gas effect emission is 60 times less than a car. So the impact on the environment is huge. The second element, it is let's say the ratio around the density. In order to move in Paris 1,700 people, it's only one train, it's 10 buses, and it's 1,100 cars. And I'm leading to the third point, which is the space occupancy. And this will become, let's say, the battle war for tomorrow. In the cities, what is key is to have a good public transportation system, which is the skeleton of the cities, because the space occupancy will be key tomorrow, and it's already the case. Honestly, today in Paris, there is a battle for the public space, inside the city. And the public transport is 27 times inferior in terms of space occupancy than cars. So I really believe that we have a good future because it's not possible to have cities developing, and you know that the world of tomorrow is a world of cities. We are already 55% living in cities. We will be 61% in 2030 and nearly 70% in 2050. So obviously, this large city will concentrate of the world GDP. In fact, the 600 biggest city will concentrate 60% of the world GDP. And it's absolutely key that the public transport system is well organized and avoid this, let's say, massive disruption that cars could produce. So our ability in Paris, we have tried to offer multimodal services, i.e., when you took our device, our net application, you could have bicycle, you could have electric scooter. So we try to have a kind of mobility as a service integration where, and we work during the crisis, it's a kind of acceleration for us on that one, because we have acquired the number 3 Mappy, which is behind Google Maps and City Mapper that you know very well in London and use, I think, very oftenly. So we bought Mappy during the summer in order to really build with our own team a kind of mobility as a service. I.e. aggregation of all different mobility, and you could obviously look at your future itinerary and book and pay. And we're working on that very actively because we think it will be a very good service, and a lot of people work on that. I know that the business plan around this type of activity is still very difficult, but we think it will be absolutely key to offer it tomorrow. So we managed during the crisis to do this acquisition in order to boost our performance on that front. And public transportation will be more and more an association of transport and services. And I think it's really important for tomorrow.
Mm. And as you were saying, that the future of public transport so bound up in the future of our cities, and you think a lot in your group about innovation and the future of the city. Tell us a little bit about that, and also the sort of services that you were just mentioning there that you think can sort of link public transport and the future more integrated, connected city.
Yeah, for instance, in RATP, we have this ability to let's say build, in fact, bricks of a more inclusive city. Why I'm saying that? We are engaged in a massive program in Paris in order to convert all the bus to biogas or electric. And doing this, it's really an industrial conversion, because we have to move all our bus depot to electricity or biogas. By the way, we are doing it in London, as you know, because we are an operator in London. We have 1,200 buses in London, and we were the first operator in London to operate the first line fully electric with the first electric depot. And we're working on a program with TfL in order to expand this program to 4 bus depots and more lines, more electric lines. But in Paris, the size of the conversion is huge, because obviously this fleet is very significant. It's 4,700 buses. And if we manage to do this, we will reduce our greenhouse gas effect by 50%. And it is the target that we have to reach for 2025. Today, I'm speaking, and we are already at minus 13%, because the target was set in 2015, knowing that this huge program will take, let's say, nearly a decade to manage it, okay? Because it's a very important, obviously, program in terms of investment, not only in terms of know-how, but also in terms of investment. It's 1.8 billion. And this is financed with, obviously, our PTA, which is in Paris, Île-de-France Mobilité. So this is one part of it. The second part is doing this conversion on the industrial side. We are, for some of them, above the bus depot, constructing social housing or private housing program. And this is really interesting, because we keep our industrial side inside the cities, which is important in terms of money, because obviously if you get out of the city, you burn, obviously, energy, and you pay people in order to get back and forth, which will we avoid staying in city. And in fact, we leverage our assets doing a real estate program on top of it. And this is obviously a way for us to operate in partnership with very innovative real estate, let's say, professional. And we have partnered with a company called Woodeum, which is really specialist in doing very big program in wood. Wood, very green, with all the best, let's say, certification possible. And we have 5 programs in Paris with them. And we have also programs by our own, but we have decided to partner with these very innovative guys in order to help us to have a very, let's say, green and inclusive program inside the city.
Mm. And my final question for you, Catherine, is I think I know the answer to this, but are you an optimist? If we meet again in a year, do you think we'd be back towards something approaching normal in the transport world?
Yes, being optimist is, let's say, an obligation when you're CEO of a company, which after being hurt so badly by the COVID. But honestly, for the reason that I have mentioned, yes, I think that the public transportation system will be absolutely key in the world of tomorrow. We need to avoid to be totally overwhelmed by pollution, congestion, and we are the part of the solution. So yes, saying so, I think we will need to adapt, because I think that the crisis will lead to new, let's say, ways of working. And I think, for instance, we will need to be maybe more innovative in the way we finance the system. For instance, it could be implement tariffs which could be difference between peak and low hours. If you want to use the system when it's really early in the morning or late in the night, it could be different. You have yield management in airlines. We could have a kind of yield management in the system for PTA. I think also that one of the key is, at least in Paris, it is that we create, as public transport operators, for instance, in Paris, we are extended 4 new lines of metro with a very important inauguration Monday with the Prime Minister, because we extend the line, which is absolutely key in Paris, north. And doing so, we create a lot of value, of external positive value for the system, and notably, for instance, for the real estate. And this is not, for the moment, extract as value and reinvest in the system of public transportation. A lot of value is generated, but for others, let's say, economic operators. And if we could capture part of it and to re-inject it into the system in order to promote the investment in regeneration, in extension, it could be great. And I think so. You did it in a way in London with the urban toll. It's a kind of, let's say, capture of, but it's more in the sense of making more difficult to get and to take a car. Here, I'm really talking about the impact of the public transport system on the city, on the real estate. When you open a metro line, you will see the price of it really increase, capture part of it in order to reinject in investment. So I think the crisis always given ideas and opportunity, and we need to consider this, because we absolutely need to keep the system running. And I would tell you, as RATP, we invest 37% of the turnover last year, and it will be the same this year, in order to ever obviously take care of the assets or develop the system. So you need to have strong operator, strong PTAs in order to get the city system with let's say, something which is really performant.
Well, hopefully some huge opportunities ahead then. And thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
There, touching on the pandemic and how you've led your business through the crisis, but also some insights into the future and the role that public transport has to play in driving the recovery. So thank you very much.